Ladies and gentlemen, it is Grey Cup Sunday, the final day on the CFL calendar, so I had to have back on the Avry Sports Show from Rouge Radio, Mr. Dave Dawson. Dave, how are you doing today, sir?
Avery, it's Grey Cup Sunday. It's Christmas, pretty much, for football fans right now, and I'm jacked. I can't wait for this big day. Thanks for having me on again.
No, of course, Maas. Please, I do want to ask you before we get into the game between the Redblacks and the Eskimos. The CFL's new logo, what do you think? Yay or nay? I am not a fan.
You know what? I'll say this, and I've been guilty of this before. People don't like change. Being a guy from Winnipeg, I remember when the Jets came back, they showed their logo, and people were like, oh, it's so stupid. It's so ugly. Why are they using this? Why don't they do this or that? And then after a few months, everybody got used to it, and now there are Jets jerseys everywhere. And I personally love the logo. I, at first, was one of those guys that said, I hate it. So, in saying that, it's been a soapbox, kind of a quiet soapbox of mine for about a year now, that the CFL's website is pretty archaic.
That is true.
And people are a bit afraid of change. So, being a CFL fan that I am, and knowing that in order to move forward into the future, you need to make changes. Every large company has done things like that, including Shaw, the major sponsor of the Grey Cup. They had a massive rebrand a year ago, and they're bigger than ever now. So, I fully support this new logo. Personally, whether I like the design or not, I'm a CFL purist, so I'm married to that old logo. You know what? Change, especially in our 21st century, is pretty much mandatory. Like, if you're not moving forward, you're left in the dust. So, you know what? Let's go for it. I'm a fan of the logo. Let's move forward.
I don't know, I agree with change in a sense, but when I see it, and when I still see it, Dave, I just think a toaster with laces. That just comes to mind. A toaster.
There's probably a few other things I can think of too. So, but I mean, you know what? Like, after a couple months, everybody will be used to it. It's that original shock of changing it originally. So yeah, if to answer your question, I'm not really a big fan of it, but I'm more a fan of the fact that they realize we need to change something. In order to move forward, we got to change. Let's start with the logo. Hopefully the website follows, and they're moving forward. So do I like it? Probably not, but it's changed, which is good.
And you did mention the fact of the league website. The website, I must admit, it has been frustrating to use for quite some time. And one of the big things that the state of the league, Jeffrey Rouge mentioned, was that they want to try and get the younger audience involved in the game. And one of the big things, I think, is the website. Because to people of my age, if the site doesn't work well, we're not going to log on to try and find stats, fantasy football. So that was one thing I think that they should have really dealt with years ago, to be honest. But the fact they're addressing it now is a really good thing.
Avery, the one thing that people, they quite often lay the NFL up beside the CFL. They say, nay versus nay, here's the greatest template in the world. In the NFL, there's no one better, no other league better than who brags about themselves better than the NFL. They are far above and superior on every level. And why? Mm-hmm. Because they interact with the young viewer. Fantasy football, like you just mentioned, they have a website that is interactive, it's modern. If the CFL is going to go after some of those younger viewers, and let's be honest, if you lay up the purity of the game, forget about the crowd sizes, forget about the league, forget about the athletes, forget about the website, forget about everything else. If you lay the purity of the league beside each other, the CFL is more exciting to watch. 3 downs, no fair catch, it's exciting to watch. But where they are severely lacking is interacting with the young viewer. And a website, some better fantasy football. If you get all that going, you're going to see the CFL grow and grow and grow. And why? Because you're going after the younger demographic, such as yourself, who would rather, just for the convenience, be heavily involved in college football or NFL just because they love the way the website is, right? Because everybody's digital in our day.
Yeah, it's very true. Everybody is digital. And now, and the league, I know they're streaming this game on YouTube, I think, which is a great idea. And getting the game beyond Canada and the U.S., to have the game being shown worldwide will be great for league growth, in my mind, Dave.
Future is bright, my friend. I had a couple of comments, a direct message conversation with a Twitter follower on a Rouge Radio account earlier in the year, and a guy who said, you know what, the attendance figures are down. Do you think eventually the CFL is going to go bankrupt? And I kind of argued back and forth a little bit with this guy, but, I think right now the CFL is in the best position they possibly can be. Jeffrey Orge, the commissioner, I don't really want to talk a lot about him today, but I think that he had big shoes to fill with Mark Cohen.
Mm-hmm.
So he's in a spot. All he really has to do is, find ways to interact with the younger viewer. Crowds will start showing up in Toronto again, moving to BMO. Ottawa's successful. Hamilton's got a competitive team. Why are attendance figures down? Because the Riders were absolutely putrid this year.
Yes, sir.
So nobody wanted to watch them, right? So Saskatchewan transplants who are living in Toronto, the bandwagoners aren't going to buy tickets and go to the game. They're like, I don't want to watch a team who's going to lose by 50, right? But suddenly if the Riders are competitive again, boom, the league is better. So the CFL, once the Riders are good again next year, and they will be, the CFL is in a great position going forward.
Absolutely, and you mentioned with this league, a great storyline. When I first had you on, the Eskimos were busy mollywomping Ottawa, and now this is the Grey Cup matchup. Did you think in any scenario that the Redblacks would be playing for it all in year 2 in the league, Dave?
You know what? If you asked me that question in June of 2014, I would have laughed in your face. But I'll tell you this. If you go back to our 9 teams and 9-week season preview on Rouge Radio, I predicted the Redblacks to go 12-6 this year, surprise everybody because of their receiving core, which they shored up. And I didn't say they'd make it to the Grey Cup, but I said they'd cause some headaches. And I think everybody wouldn't have known Zach Collaros got injured, because if Zach Collaros was healthy, Hamilton, they would have assassinated everybody. They wouldn't have touched anyone. But because of that, because of Collaros going down, Henry Burris and the Redblacks are now in a position to potentially win this game, and they have a good a shot as anybody do. So, I thought the Redblacks would be competitive this year. I picked them to finish 12-6. However, I would have not figured they'd be playing for the Grey Cup today.
It's amazing because it doesn't matter what North American sports league, be it the CFL, the NBA, NHL, second-year teams don't do this well. And Henry Burris, he's kind of showing you know what, screw you guys. I'm not done. I'm coming back with a vengeance. And to win the MOP award at age 40 is incredible stuff for Hank.
To break records all over the place. It's funny how quarterbacks, if you look at Anthony Calvillo's career, one of the greatest quarterbacks to ever lived, ever stepped foot on a turf in the CFL. But his last year and a bit, you could tell his reads were slower. His offensive line, which he relied on quite a bit, he wasn't able to use the protection. He was throwing more picks. If you go back through game by game, I'm not saying that he got worse, but you could show that his age was settling in. Henry Burris, at 40 years old, looks like Zach Collaros does right now. Like, he is at the top of his game, and he's fun to watch. You tell me, I don't care if you love him or hate him, if you're a pure blood, that Hank could Hank, if you're a guy who hates Henry Burris, you have to admit, Henry Burris is one of the most exciting players in the CFL right now.
Absolutely, he truly is. And you mentioned that receiving core, guys like Craig Ellingson and Brad Sinopoli, the ex-quarterback turned receiver, they've been incredible. I didn't think these guys would be doing much this year, but they sure as heck proved me wrong. And I think Ottawa, for quite some time, they could be a very good team in Eastern Division beyond 2015, Dave.
And Avry, let's not forget about Marcus Henry, who's been a healthy scratch for half the season, Matt Carter, guys like that, Khalil Payton, who was their go-to guy last year, who can't find a spot on the roster. Let's not forget about that. Like, you compare those two teams, Edmonton and Ottawa, beside each other, right down the line, they're identical. The Eskimos have Wallace Miles, who was Ottawa's go-to guy last year. He can't find a spot in the lineup.
No.
Ottawa will be good next year, but, you look at once Henry Burris starts to show his age, Thomas DeMarco is brilliant in BC. He hasn't seen any snaps recently, so that's the one question I have, wondering if that will be something that they can build off of going forward.
Of course, what do you say about Rick Campbell? Comes in, leads an expansion team in year 1, everything goes wrong, and coming in year 2, he's done a bang-up job on all aspects with this franchise, Dave, as head coach.
You know what, Avery, I'm going to say this. I would say that offense last year had more to do with Mike Gibson than it do with Rick Campbell. And Mike Gibson, now coaching the Regina Rams, good spot for him. You know what? I really hate to point coaches out and say they're ineffective, because I'm a broadcaster. I've never actually coached a down of football in my life, so I don't know what they go through. I'm just a guy who watches 97 hours of Canadian football a week. But I hang that offense last year on Mike Gibson. Because you look at Jason Maas coming in, he had more weapons, but Henry Burris is more confident. They're using the run more effectively. Right? That offense is just more properly designed than it was with Mike Gibson. I couldn't I don't know how many times I yelled at TV last year with some of the calls. So I don't think it was as much Rick Campbell as it was Mike Gibson who really handcuffed the Redblacks into making some awful decisions.
And you mentioned Jason Maas. He did wonders in Toronto. He did wonders in Ottawa. Do you think Jason Maas one day will be head coach in this league, Dave?
Oh my goodness, next 3 years. Who wouldn't want Jason Maas as their head coach? You know, you look at Scott Milanovich is kind of the exact same idea, right? That Scott Milanovich, offensive coordinator, bang, turned everything around, bang, he's a head coach. So, you know, honestly, looking at Jason Maas and what he brings to the table, you know, as a quarterback, he was intense. He hated getting sacked. He hated to lose. You know, say what you want about the way he quarterbacked, whatever. I still think he was a great player. Jason Maas will be a head coach in the CFL in the next 3 years.
Well, you know what? I have to agree with you on that one. You know, wouldn't shock me one bit. Would not shock me one bit, Dave. And going from Ottawa to Edmonton, this Eskimos team, they've gone through it all. They lost quarterbacks. They had injuries. Their defense stepped up. Mike Riley, how cool would it be to see him win? Going through all of what he's gone through, being a third string guy in BC, coming here to Edmonton, the infamous 4-14 year of 2013, being hurt most of 2015. I mean, if he wins it all, he's a gamer. He's shown that he is an elite quarterback in this league right now, Dave.
Avery, I'll tell you this. You know, being an Edmonton guy as much as I am, getting a chance to go on the sidelines, talk to Mike Riley, his demeanor, his leadership, the pocket presence he commands. You know, it's a funny thing to watch Mike Riley, because there are times when he's in the pocket that I'm going, that guy's wide open. That guy's wide open. He's locking into Darrell. He's locking into a Darius. Why aren't you spreading the ball around to this guy and that guy? And then he runs for 15 yards head first, plows over a linebacker, knocks down 2 defensive backs, plunges into the end zone. You're like, okay, never mind, right? Like, there is nothing Mike Riley can't do. You know, as much as people might criticize him of making one read, then two, then running the ball, you know, sometimes he may do that. He's not as much of your Peyton Manning type quarterback where he sits 1 read, 2 read, 3 read, 4 read, 5 reads. You know, Mike Riley is more of a quick decision quarterback and runs. But if there's one guy I want on my leadership team who I'm going to build behind is a Mike Riley kind of guy. He will run through a brick wall for you. He will have 3 or 4 defensive backs on his back, plus a defensive lineman, and his legs will still be moving. Even if his arm falls off and he gets an eye gouge out, he will claw his way for a first down. And that's your quarterback. That's your leader. Mike Riley, if he wins the Grey Cup, he did it because he deserves it.
Absolutely. You mentioned him running through a brick wall. I'd run through 4 for the man. How can you not like Mike Riley? I love the guy.
You know what? And Tony Allen, a shout out to him on our podcast, he mentioned the same thing too. He's like, he's a diehard Stampeders fan, but he finds it so hard to hate Mike Riley. Like, it's like Zach Collaros. You can't hate Zach Collaros. Like, what has he ever done wrong to you? All he's done has been a great quarterback, a great character player, you know, battle through injuries. Like, those 2 guys, Mike Riley and Zach Collaros, are the future of the CFL, bar none. Bar none.
Oh, 110%. And Dave, this Eskimos receiving core, where would they be without a Darius Bowman? Back-to-back 1,000-yard receiving years. He's a guy, people always get on a Darius for, Darius had an easy drop. But when the game's in the line, you want to get the ball in his hands because he's a big game receiver no matter what in this league. He's proven that time and time again, Dave.
I'm not going to lie. I'm one of those guys that's been on a Darius before. You know, he's given that name a drop, yes, where sometimes that does happen. But, you know, you get as many opportunities to catch the ball as Darius does and make plays continually. He's a playmaker. He makes those tough catches. He's a big body. And hats off to Darius. You know, start of his career, lots of drops. To fight back and to battle through, like it's your own Messon type player, right? People cast him off, like, well, he's washed up and done. Darius, he's a personality on the field. He's a personality off the field. He gets a lot of targets, and he gets a lot of targets because he makes the catches, right? It's not just, well, we got to throw the ball to Darius because he's big. No, they throw the ball to Darius because they know he may drop a couple, but he's going to make a big catch, and he will fight through coverage to make those catches. So he does see 10-plus targets a game because he deserves it.
And of course, Darrell Walker, Rookie of the Year, he comes in. He's shown that he's going to be a star in this league for a very long time to come himself, Dave.
He will be. Hands of glue. The guy rarely drops anything. He always gets open. He kind of reminds me of, you know, he's a little more flashy than a Corey Watson. If Corey Watson hadn't battled all the concussions and injuries that he's had his whole career, I thought Corey Watson could have been a guy like Darrell Walker. And he does have the advantage of playing that wide side position that Mike Riley likes to throw to as well. So that's a benefit to Darrell Walker. But in saying that, he makes the plays. He's prolific. He's a fantastic receiver. And how could you not love Darrell Walker with what he does?
No, absolutely. And of course now, Chris Jones, he comes in after replacing Kavis Reed, an era that was very hit and miss by Kavis's last year, very much a miss. Chris Jones comes in. Do you do everything in your power to make sure he stays here? Because I've heard that Saskatchewan's been snooping around and trying to bring Chris Jones to Saskatchewan for 2016 next year, Dave.
Yeah, I've heard about that too. You know what? I think that Chris Jones wins a Grey Cup. I wouldn't blame him for looking elsewhere, because say what you want about the Riders and how terrible they were this year, really all they got to do, shed 2 or 3 of their old fart defenders, and get a better defensive scheme in there, they are right back in the mix. Like, this old age Riders team was trending for a long time, and Chris Jones could be the guy. But here's the thing. With the kind of team that the Eskimos have been building for, they're not going to go away anytime soon. This Eskimos team is going to be dominant for a long time. So for Chris Jones, it's this question. Do you want to have a dynasty like you did in the early 2000s, the Eskimos, where it was Edmonton, Montreal, every Grey Cup? Or do you want to build something in Saskatchewan and be a god? Like, he will be the man anywhere he goes. Everything clumps. So that's up to Chris Jones, what he wants, right? His relationship with Ed Hervey, from what I hear, is strong. So it's build a dynasty or be a god. It's between the two.
It's a tough choice, eh? But you know what? If you're Chris Jones, you can't really lose either way, can you?
No.
Not at all, not at all. You mentioned Ed Hervey. I mean, after the Eric Tillman era, which was simultaneous with the Kavis Reed era, people were down. Ed Hervey replaces Eric Tillman as the general manager, and he's revived his team entirely as a GM. He's made solid moves. I don't know where his team would be if they didn't promote Ed Hervey to the GM job.
The Canadian talent. You build around Canadian talent. He's drafted well. He's signed key players. And everybody's waiting for me to mention the name, so obviously my bro, Nate Kuhorn, another 3-year deal. Guy like that, but let's be honest. You know, a guy with the talent that Nate does have, he doesn't get as many targets. He is sold out 100% and happy to be an Edmonton Eskimo. You know, if he got the kind of targets Brad Sinopoli did, he would be right up there, right? But he doesn't care. Nate's a team player. Those are the kind of guys that Hervey got. You know, your Corey Watsons, right? Drafting a guy like Dave Beard. Guys like those, your character players, and bringing in your Kenny Staffords, spread stamps, getting up there in age. Rumor has it, which is unofficial, but he wasn't happy about his reduced role. So you bring in a guy like Kenny Stafford who could accept a reduced role, right? Continually. Seeing the daylight in the Darius Bowman going, yeah, you've had some issues, but we'll work on it. We'll help you out. And then, of course, the defense, building around that defense, right? Odell Willis, his prime was with Winnipeg. He went to Saskatchewan, wasn't that great in Saskatchewan, and he's rejuvenated in Edmonton, right? Continually. Eddie Steele, guys like that. You know, Ed Hervey, hats off to him for rebuilding this Eskimos team. And Edmonton fans, this is going to be a good team for a number of years ahead in the future.
And I fully agree with that. And I do want to ask you, score prediction. Who are you taking in this game, Mr. Dawson?
Well, I got the Edmonton Eskimos and Odell Willis having a game of his life. He's been quiet for a very long time. That Ottawa offensive line has been good, but Chris Jones has got a game plan coming in. Odell Willis, look for him to be fired up, and the Edmonton Eskimos winning their first Grey Cup since 2005 and their 14th in team history, 37-29.
You're right. You know what? The Redblacks, it's a great story. It'll be a storybook ending to see them win, but it won't happen. I'm going to go Edmonton 33-23 in this game, Dave.
Great prediction, my friend.
Yes, sir. Before I let you go, one more question. The CFL, they blocked the Lager group from celebrations. Is that just beyond silly to block basically a mascot for the Redblacks from being there?
I might actually just blame the investors group staff, because they haven't made a whole lot of great decisions this year, from the press box to the flood to everything. So I'm going to blame the investors group staff and say that, they're probably the reason for that. I don't know. You know what? That stuff is all gimmicky. People with their shutout curves don't say shutout with a minute left, whatever. Regardless, I don't know. Have your fun with it. That's one of those things that is going to be great to interact with the young fans, to, catch some fire, go to town. have your gimmicks all you want. It's not going to make much of a difference.
Not at all, not at all. And Dave, it's been a blast having you on again.
You betcha, Avery. Anytime for you, my man.
Of course, thanks, Dave.